Hi, I'm Slimy Sally, and I'm going to teach you a foolproof way to defeat fascists in any argument or any debate. The best part? You don't have to memorize a bunch of talking points. You don't even have to be a good public speaker. And even if you completely screw up, you cannot lose. Want to know the secret? It's easy. Don't debate fascists. Ever. Now, I'm not saying be quiet, but you have nothing to gain and everything to lose from an actual debate or argument. By giving them a platform, even to just expose their bigoted and hateful views, or to present a counter-narrative, you're legitimizing them. Even if you're appearing on their platform, you're still drawing people in who are there to see you. You're giving them access to your audience. Even if your audience is just your friends and family, that still helps them grow and spread their ideas. The very act of debating something implies that there is some standard of evidence that would make that thing tolerable. No such standard of evidence exists for the forcible removal and incumbent murder of minorities and other undesirables. To present this idea as even hypothetically considerable is monstrous. And if we're not willing to even consider an idea, we certainly shouldn't debate its legitimacy. But, I get it. I understand why you might want to. Fascism, white nationalism, ethno-states. These are completely illogical ideas that fall apart under even the slightest scrutiny, and reveal themselves as the hateful fantasies of deranged toilet people that they actually are. You'd think it would be pretty easy to poke holes in these philosophies. And sure, you might not convince the person that you're debating, but you might convince people in the audience, right? Maybe. Maybe not. You have the truth on your side, but the truth isn't actually as convincing to the average person as a compelling fiction. That's why fascists lie. They always lie. They lie a lot. Lying is like their main thing. If they were honest about what they wanted, they'd be run out of town on a rail. They'll never just straight up tell you that they advocate genocide. They'll say some horseshit like peaceful ethnic cleansing or pleasant displacement or loving concentration camps. If they're pressed on the specifics of how any of their ideas are to be accomplished, they'll just kind of shrug and go, I don't know, white people are really smart and we'll figure it out. You can go ahead and give them all the good faith that you want. They're not going to return the favor. They like to lie. It suits them to lie. It helps them when they lie. I'm going to read an excerpt from Sartre's Anti-Semite and Jew. Never believe that anti-Semites are completely unaware of the absurdity of their replies. They know that their remarks are frivolous, open to challenge, but they are amusing themselves, for it is their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly, since he believes in words. The anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with discourse, for, by giving ridiculous reasons, they discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors. They delight in acting in bad faith, since they seek not to persuade by sound argument, but to intimidate and disconcert. If you press them too closely, they will abruptly fall silent, loftily indicating by some phrase that the time for argument is past. Homeboy wrote that in 1944. Doesn't it feel a little prescient now that the Nazis have the handy excuse of, oh, I don't actually mean what I'm saying, I'm just being ironic? Weird how even though they don't believe anything they're saying for real, they seem to have a lot of bedfellows who definitely do believe it. Weird how they seem to have a lot of things in common. Weird. That's just weird. Basically what Sartre is saying is that the fascists don't give a shit about truth, and they'll say anything, even if they know it's not true, if it suits their agenda. The moment you think you have them trapped in some sort of rhetorical dead end, they'll just shrug it off and refuse to engage. If it makes them look bad, they'll claim that we're joking, or they'll just laugh at you, or they'll threaten you. They will never ever concede, and they're willing to make things up whole cloth if it makes their arguments appear more substantial than they actually are. Having the truth on your side is only an asset if your opponent cares about the truth, and fascists don't. That's why they're fascists, because they believe wrong stuff, like fascism. And once again, you're probably thinking, oh, well, it won't change the fascist's mind, but it might change the mind of someone who's watching the argument or someone in the audience. And maybe, but keep in mind, your argument is presented on equal footing with a lie. No one in the audience has any reason to trust your credibility over your opponent's. And if you're both calling each other liars, why should they believe you instead of them? It doesn't really matter what's true and what's not. If your opponent is able to insist their lies are the truth, they win. You don't get to do that, because you're trying to argue the truth. You can't just make up whatever sounds best and make that your argument. You have to stick to what's true. They don't. And it's not hard to lie really convincingly if you lack all shame. Have you noticed who the president is? Reality is boring sometimes. Fiction can be as salacious and engaging as you want. Reality is just a bunch of numbers and bar graphs. Fiction can have Spider-Man in it. In reality, immigrants have much lower crime rates than natural citizens, and that makes sense because if you risk everything to go to a place, you're not really going to jeopardize that by committing a crime and risking being taken away. But if I were to just make up some horseshit off the top of my head, like roving Muslim rape gangs are attacking white women and the decadent leftist media is covering it up, it scares the shit out of people. I'm not going to risk letting people like that into my neighborhood if I don't know whether or not it's true. And I might not necessarily believe it, but it's definitely going to stick in my head as something that people are talking about. And sure, you can provide evidence that that claim is just made up. But what are the odds that your refutations are as memorable and engaging as the claim itself? What are people going to remember? The horrible made-up racist nonsense? Or the dry statistics which suggest that nonsense might be a little bit misleading? Not to mention that while you're busy refuting one claim, your opponent can just say 10 more whack things and there's just shit all you can do about it. Eventually, you're going to look like a paranoid loon if you say that they're lying about everything, even if they actually are. Fascism is not smart. But fascists can be cunning. They know that people don't always respond to the best data. They respond to the most emotionally compelling story. They know how to manipulate people. They know how to make everyone afraid of the other. And maybe you can see through that. But are you sure that your audience is familiar with that type of argument? Are you sure that they know what fascists are doing? Because if you're not knee-deep in internet Nazis all day, like those of us that want to debate them, you might not. And you might think that their arguments are more convincing than they actually are. So do not, under any circumstances, debate or argue with a fascist. Keep in mind though, what I'm not saying is that means you should just be quiet. You can still dispute them, you just don't need their involvement or permission to do that. You can debunk, dispute, disparage someone without their presence, without them getting a word in edgewise. Is that fair? Well, no. We don't need to be fair to them. They're not going to be fair with us. And maybe at this point you're saying, we need to be better than they are. We're already better than they are. We're not arguing that it's okay to exterminate human beings. If you want to present a case against fascism, please do. We need lots of people doing that. What I'm saying is, don't give them the opportunity to rebut you. Don't give them the opportunity to present their messages the way they want to present them. It's not more moral to give them a platform than it is to deny them one. Quite the opposite, in fact. Every inch of ground they seize brings us one step closer to people being murdered, and every inch that you argue with them about is one more inch they can seize. You're taking a huge gamble, and to what end? To hopefully convert a few of their followers? Why are the souls of their followers more important than the safety of their victims? Fascism is an existential threat to Jewish people, LGBT people, people of color, neurodivergent or disabled people, and pretty much anyone else that gets in their way. And let me be clear, I don't mean if they get into power or control the government. I mean right now. I mean right now. Them spreading their message is enough to inspire horrific violence. And it does. Routinely. We have to do everything in our power to stop that message dead in its tracks before it has a chance to hurt anyone. People like the British Skull or Arrow Boy do really good jobs at this, and neither requires the presence of or permission from a fascist to do so. In fact, their arguments actually work better because the fascists aren't invited to participate. They don't get to drown them out with a million lies. They don't get to control the messaging. If debating Nazis stopped Nazis, the Nazis wouldn't constantly demand to debate you. They want a debate because debate makes them look legitimate. It makes their ideas look like just another thing people are discussing. An idea that there are some pros for, some cons for. If there's a debate, it means that their ideas merit further discussion and examination. It means that maybe there's something to what they're saying. Maybe we should talk about it and find out what that is. But what they're arguing against is people's fundamental humanity, and that can't ever be put up for debate. Full stop. Lastly, maybe you're going to tell me, well, I've debated Nazis, and I've gotten lots of messages from former Nazis thanking me for telling me the error of their ways. That's great. Truly. But how do you know your opponent isn't getting the same messages? Time for a jarring tonal shift. Big ups to my patrons this April. We got Patrick M., Jacob A. Berkowitz, Mia Nakano, Niels Abildgard, Matthew, Michael Yokorn, Shoreham, Jane, J-Bugs III, Pregnant Seinfeld, Julian Colin, Michael Hollenbach, some random leftist, Ryan William Cox, and Nicole the Anarchoduck. Mad big ups to Queen Maxine, Chuds McKenzie, Jordan Hoxie, Shaban O'Leary, and Jan Anders Bremer. And that's patreon.com/thoughtslime if you're interested. Hey, like this video and subscribe to me, you great big pepperoni. I make all sorts of videos here, having good, clean leftist fun on youtube.com. This is my cat. Meow, 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 meow.